Rawteur. This is the Terminator, and in 1984, it exploded onto movie screens and changed sci-fi forever. But right after it came out, legendary sci-fi writer Ellison dropped a bombshell. He claimed James Cameron ripped off an episode he wrote for The Outer Limits called Soldier. His first claim was that the Terminator ripped off the overall theme of a time-traveling soldier. But one of the strongest claims Ellison made was that both opened with an electrical storm that brought the soldiers and their future war into our time. I mean, you take a look.
Hey, buddy, did you just see it real bright?
It's not a shot-for-shot copy, but it's difficult to deny the influence. James Cameron is on record saying that any similarities are just a coincidence, but there is some validity to Ellison's claims. Ellison pointed out that the pacing, the way the scenes are shot, and the way the events unfold weren't just similar. He claimed they were nearly identical. Now, I have to push back just a tad right here. The pacing in the Terminator is much faster because it's an action sci-fi, whereas Soldier is labeled solely a sci-fi, and I'd add suspense, so a suspense sci-fi, and you'll understand why shortly. Now, on the screen are both opening alley scenes. On the left is the Terminator, and on the right is Soldier. As the jury, the easiest way to dismiss the pacing portion of Ellison's claim is to clap the like button. Thank you. Actually, the easiest way to dismiss the pacing portion is to focus on the camera work and the music. Hey, future me here, I actually should have said this is how you evaluate these claims instead of dismiss. Sorry. In the Terminator, there's an entire chase, and it's shot on a handheld, which you can tell because you see the camera bobbing up and down. Now, with the music, classic 80s synth, the pace is elevated. And in Soldier, besides the one crane shot at the back of the alley, the rest of the encounter with the police is all on a tripod, as you can see, perfectly steady. And the music is suspenseful, which tends to be more deliberate so shots can linger for intensity. So as you can see, this is one of those claims where it's like, I believe Ellison was copied, just not in all of the ways he's claimed so far. Which then makes sense why James Cameron was so opposed to settling Ellison's claim. Then, Ellison said that the endings are identical. In the Terminator, Kyle sticks a pipe bomb in the T-800 and dies when it explodes. However, Sarah is the one who actually finishes the job by crushing the Terminator. Now, in the Outer Limits episode Soldier, Quarlo wrestles the other soldier to the ground and then they both just disappear. And the episode ends right there on a forever cliffhanger, stating that we'll only know what the future holds when we get there, basically. Maybe one of you can explain to me how those two episodes are similar, because I don't get it. Like, how did Harlan Ellison see the movie and come to the conclusion that Terminator ripped him off? Granted, some things were similar because of the 4 claims he made, which were the overall theme, the electrical storm, the pacing, and the ending. I agree with only 2 of them, the theme and the storm. Well, the thing is, Ellison first started hearing rumors about a movie that borrowed from 2 of his works. The first was Soldier, and the other was one called Demon with a Glass Hand. Both are from season 2 of The Outer Limits, episode 2 and episode 5, respectively.
Some years ago, before Terminator came out, I began to hear from people, gee, there's this script that they were going to shoot that reads an awful like you're script for Soldier that you did on Outer Limits years ago.
Including those 2 episodes, Ellison had written on 9 TV shows and was a critic at the time. Therefore, he expected to get the normal early screening pass for The Terminator. However, after his initial request for a copy of the script was denied, then so was his screening pass. And that's when all the alarm bells started going off for Ellison. And it makes sense from his point of view. Why else deny an accredited critic access unless you had something to hide?
So we applied to Hemdale Films for a copy of the script, and they refused to let us see it. Now, the minute someone tells you you can't see something as innocuous as a script, particularly, I mean, this was my attorney asking, and it was not, I'm clearly not some jamook off the street. I was a writer with some credentials. You begin, your antenna rise, and you say, there's something going on here. Well, as an accredited film critic, in Hollywood, I see every film, and I get a screening pass to every film. We did not get one to Terminator.
So Ellison waited for the movie to release, then he bought a ticket and went to a public showing. According to reports, the second he saw the opening scene with the electrical storm, his gut feeling turned into full-on certainty. But this wasn't Ellison's first legal match. He had already gone up against ABC over a show called Future Cop. At that time, he claimed they stole the idea from his short story Brillo, which was about a human cop paired with an android partner. And he won. The court awarded him credit and a nice payout. So this wasn't some bitter old writer just looking for attention. He had a track record of defending his work and winning. Now, what made things even messier for James Cameron was that people inside the industry started backing up Ellison's claims. Screenwriter Tracy Torme told Ellison that Cameron used to joke openly about ripping off his stories. And the editor of Starlog Magazine said that in an early interview, Cameron actually admitted he got inspiration from episodes of The Outer Limits.
The first thing that happened was that the editors of Starlog Magazine called me and said, we're getting a lot of heat all of a sudden from James Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd. And I said, on what grounds? Well, what had happened was they had interviewed Cameron prior to the film's release. And Cameron had been his usual, I've never met the man, but I gather that he has an ego that makes mine look minuscule by comparison. And that in the course of his interview, someone had said to him, where did you get the basic conception for Terminator? And his response was, oh, I ripped off a couple of Outer Limits segments.
So when Ellison caught wind of that interview, he tried to get a copy, but supposedly the studio pressured the magazine to scrub the alleged confession. So at this point, Hemdale and Orion Pictures were in a bad spot. Even though I'd only agree with 50% of his claims, having 2 first-hand witnesses to confessions from James Cameron is a slam dunk in court. So the studio could either roll the dice and fight Ellison in court or settle quietly and make the problem go away. They decided to settle, and Ellison got a payout.
They settled with a substantial amount of money, not the kind of money I would have gotten had I gone to court. It was $65,000 or $75,000, $65,500 or $75,500, something like that, with an additional $5,000 to be paid to me after a period of time that was stipulated in the contract agreement if I did not speak of any of this. Right. The other part of the contract agreement, which was very important, was that every copy of the film thereafter, whether on video cassette or laser disc, on cable TV or commercial TV, would say the producers wish to acknowledge the works of Harlan Ellison.
So in essence, Ellison won, and The Terminator is officially a knockoff. And everybody involved had to sign a gag order so they couldn't publicly talk about the settlement afterward. James Cameron was furious though, and understandably so. He insisted that any similarities were just surface level sci-fi stuff, and he absolutely did not intentionally copy anything. But Cameron said studio lawyers planned to hold him personally liable if they went to court with Ellison and lost. So he ended up settling under pressure and later called Ellison a parasite who just latched on to successful work. However, Ellison always insisted it wasn't about money for him or trying to tank the Terminator. He even said that he liked the movie. He just wanted his work acknowledged, which is fair.
Anyone can have it for nothing. Any of my work for nothing if they ask me and they say, I got a great idea here. You know, I'd really like to take off from this. Do you mind if I would? If they acknowledge that that's where it came from, I don't want a dime of their money. I don't want a dime of their credit. All I want is equal time for creators.
For him, it was about creative integrity, plain and simple. And actually, Ellison went after Marvel Comics too. In 1983, an Incredible Hulk storyline also borrowed the premise of Soldier, but Marvel owned up to it and gave him proper credit. Also, Ellison asked for a lifetime subscription to Marvel Comics as part of that settlement. It's unclear whether he got that subscription or not, but you can subscribe to my monthly movie and series recommendations for free right here. Now, just to be clear, Terminator 2 Judgment Day didn't credit Ellison at all. That's because T2 took the story in a totally different direction. Even today, fans are completely split whether or not Terminator ripped off Soldier, and honestly, maybe the truth falls somewhere in the middle. Was Cameron paying homage or crossing the line? Was Ellison fiercely defending his rights or going too far? If you really want to decide for yourself, go watch Soldier, then rewatch The Terminator, and pay attention to the vibe, the structure, the pacing, and the scenes. But to me, Ellison didn't prove his ripoff claims as much as the producers of this movie right here.